Hi, this is Annika. Today I'm going to talk about how to render skin tones using Procreate. So I did my outline and I made it a reference layer and I add a new layer on top of that. I go into the skin areas, I use my selector tool on automatic and I press everywhere I want to have skin tones, right? I use a base color and usually I use the lightest tone because it's easier that way for me. And then you can always add the shadow and the shading, and the creases and the folds in the skin will be a lot darker. I use the airbrush now for general shading. This is very basic. It's all going to be changed afterwards. And I'm using like a mid-value tone because some will be darker in the end. But this is basically where she has shade. The lower part of her leg will be completely in shadow because she's moving. Under the bikini, under where the arms are shading for the waist. The garments or the bikini pants will have a little bit of shade underneath, between the boobs as well. And I'm gonna put 2 dots above the boobs. Can you say that even on YouTube? The breasts. You'll see why, but as they are pushed up, there will be a little bit of shadow. There'll be some shadow on the arms and the muscles. That will be an elbow, there'll be some shadow there. The hands are in the hair, there'll be shade. There'll be shade under the face, on the neck, and I will have shades with the collarbone. It'll all be nicer. Right now, it's just step 2 out of many steps. And also, shading is quite intuitive, I feel. So there's not necessarily a right and wrong. Some people will be very focused on light source and where it comes from, but to me it's a matter of mood. Oh, the nose got a little crooked here. I'll fix that in a minute. So you see, I put shades below the cheekbones and I put shade where the nose are attached to the skull, right, to give an indication of a 3-dimensional nose. Now I take the outline off and I added the bikini. I made the bikini in advance. And you see there are loads of little white lines, and now I'm just gonna quickly correct those. That's where the outline used to be. You can keep the outline on if you prefer that, you know? It's just, I don't like lines, so it's just a taste question. I make a very, very harsh, dark line underneath the chin because otherwise it can look a little strange. As you see, I made makeup. I gave her a face. I didn't do her nose because her nose is about shading. So I'm just going to give her a very simple nose. I could give her a more complicated one, but that takes more time. And I really want to go over the general body as per se. So where the chin is, the chin will give a lot of shadow on the neck itself. And that's why I'll do this. And I'm adding the shadow. And you can even go darker. Like, I have to say, under the chin, on the neck, and between the breasts are the 2 harshest, like darkest area on the body. It looks kind of strange when she doesn't have a nose yet. I'm just gonna do the collarbone. What I do is I take a really dark tone as well, and then I use my shading. I use the soft brush and make it into kind of a U, and sort of just smudge the color on the inside, on the outside. And I do that for the collarbone as well because I want it to have a feeling of sticking out. So I'm gonna use very dark in the middle, like that. Maybe I curved it a little bit too much here, but you know, I'm trying to make it below 20 minutes so you're not gonna die of boredom. But so it's not always going to be perfect. And also, I have to say, using skin tone, sometimes it takes me 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes me hours. It's just sometimes, you know, depending on your mood. I'm adding white on the highlighted areas. That's the part that sticks out, right? So the darker it is, the more in it goes, and the lighter it is, the more out it goes. Like that. Now I'm gonna fix her nose. It might be a little bit too pale. I'm just gonna do like a little shape like that, and then nostrils. Like that. And then there's always a circle as a top, but don't make it a full circle. It looks silly. And then I'm going to do nostrils. This is a very, very easy version of a nose. And I don't like the lines. Again, you smudge it to give it an effect of being three-dimensional and not too drawn. And shading from the bottom of the nostril up to the eyebrow is pretty important. So I'm just going to put some color, and then I'm going to drag it and blend it in so it looks like a shadow. Like that. It might be a little bit too big. I'm zooming in, zooming out a lot. And sometimes when you do the nose, you actually have a better view when you have a normal vision and not zoomed in like I am. This might be a little on the thin side. But that's basically how you do a nose, and then you can change it depending on, you know, what kind of, how thin or wide you want the nose to be. I always make one side darker in shadow than the other. And then you do a little bit around the eye, like so. And then I put a highlight on top, basically just like you would contour using makeup. And a little white dot on the tip of the nose. So now I'm gonna do her breast. I'm gonna do a dark line, and then I'm gonna blend it in. And because she's wearing a bikini, I want it to have like a bit of a push-up effect. So I'm gonna add and blend in the shadow I put on top, the two dots I made. I don't want them to connect, but I just want to have an indication of some shadow on top of the breast. I find it equally as important as doing the outline of the actual breast. I'm just going to fill in some of the blanks from the outline. I'm going to use a pretty dark brown there because that will be a deep fold, a deep crease. And I'm going to smudge and do the elbow. And notice I'm going to use a highlight too. So I'm going to use some white there, you see, and then I'm going to blend that in because that sticks out. And then some shadow there. I'm just going to change that. And she has a muscle on the lower arm. I'm just going to indicate that. Sometimes if you have a problem area, you just leave it and you go back to it, right? So you don't have, sometimes it's just nice with a new view, do something else, go back to it if you just need inspiration. I do the belly button the same way as I do the collarbone. I make, you know, I smudge it in and then I add a little C and I blend that in so it looks deep. See, like so. That will give you an indication of an indentation going into the body. It's circular and it's blended in and it's not like one drawn line. All right, let's give us some muscles, stomach muscles, abs. So the deeper they are, the more the part will, the rounder it is, the more the lighter part will stick out like a pot belly. If you do more flat like that, she won't appear to have that pot belly, but it depends on what you want, you know? So there's a bit of a hip bone there on the sides. I'm just going to indicate that. I'm going to blend. I'm going to use a thinner brush here. I'm just using the studio pen just to indicate the muscle. But the sharper this line is, the more of a pot belly she'll have, right? So I'm going to blend it a bit. She's going to have a little bit of abs up here, ribs, you can see. She might be a little bit on the thin side. I'm going to blend it in. I'm just going to airbrush a little bit. I felt that she was too pale, so I just quickly airbrushed everything, and I'm going to give her a really dark shadow on the side. Don't want it to look too pale. I'm going to add on the arms. And that's the good thing about starting out with a lighter skin tone. You can sort of work your way to the perfect skin tone you want. Yep, sorry. So I'm still working on it here. I'm not completely happy. I took the side of the abs down a little bit. I wasn't feeling it. It looked a little silly, and I'm gonna work on the thighs. So I'm gonna indicate where her muscles are on the top of her thighs. And I'm gonna indicate it with shading. And I have her on alpha lock now, and that means you can't go outside the lines because I like to use the airbrush, and the airbrush will spray it pretty widely out. Now I took the alpha lock off. I'm just gonna work on the knees. As you see, I'm rounding it up. I'm gonna pick my color. The reason I have the colors up there so I can find the same color again with the color picker, right? The little square on the right side. So I'm gonna make it pretty dark because the knees have a lot of shadows, and I'm gonna just exaggerate the muscle a little bit. As you see, goes in and then it comes back out. The thigh muscle is really quite big, like that. And I'm gonna blend it in, but it will give you an indication of where we're going with this, like that. And it's gonna come out here. I'm gonna drag it up. And you see now we might have a big difference between light and brown. Let's see if we want to fix it later. I'm gonna add more shadow to the knee where the muscle is attached to the knee. I'm gonna indicate up here where the thigh muscle is separated. Yeah, I'm just gonna darken it a little bit. Still working on the muscle. Go to the other side. I'm not completely happy with the first side yet, but I'm just gonna leave it for a few seconds, come back to it. Sometimes it just doesn't translate well, your hand from your brain, or the other way around, really. So I'm trying to indicate how the muscle looks and how it curves. Here we go. I'm gonna make it pretty dark because it gives you an easier view of where the muscle is coming and going. You don't, I mean, it's not necessarily pretty, but I mean, it will give you a muscle indication. I'm gonna do the knee on the other leg. And I'm just gonna do like an dented half circle on the knee, as you see. It's like a U, but I go in and out, in and out. Then I'm gonna we have a big calf muscle. I'm gonna put some dark shading there. I'm gonna blend. Pick some darkness there. This leg is very dark because it's in the shade, because it's bent, so I'm gonna make it extra dark. Now I'm just correcting. Sometimes I just quickly see things. I'm like, oh, I want to make this shade a little darker. I want to emphasize this. It's really, really fairly easy. I'm just going to fix the hands. You can see you still have the outline not done because I take the outline off. But if you keep the outline, you won't have that problem. I'm going to give her fingernails. Like so. Anyway, this is it. It's super easy. Please ask questions if you have any. I hope it made sense to you. Go to annikamortensen.com or have a small shop on Etsy. Find me there. Bye.